this has been going on for a while. If you're buying an extremely expensive car, an exotic, a Ferrari, Lamborghini, something that's several $100,000, and you can title it in the LLC's name, you now have the opportunity to save $10, $20, $30,000 depending on the price of that vehicle in sales tax. They'll should be Montana plates, and it might be why you see the Montana license plates on exotics more often than any other state.
Today, I'm excited to sit down with David Donaldson, SVP at Dealer DMV, where they're bringing the DMV to the dealership. We explore how they're helping dealerships grow the pie by simplifying one of the most annoyingly complicated parts of auto retail, selling cars coast to coast. We unpack the daily challenges with out-of-state deals and break down the infamous Montana loophole, plus much more. A big thank you to our sponsors for making today's episode possible: OpenLane, Effective, and Dealer DMV. And now let's get into the show. Donaldson on the CDG podcast. David, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you on about a topic that I've dealt a lot with, but don't know much about. So I'm excited to learn about this.
Awesome. I mean, I can't say I'm not nervous. You've had a lot of amazing
Come
guests.
on.
Really, exciting stories. What comes to note, Andrew Glazer with his operation
Nice.
and being such a influential person on Bring a Trailer. And then you've got the 30-somethings that are acquiring franchise dealerships and the beginnings of a dealership empire. And I'm here to talk about tag and title, right? Everyone's
Well,
favorite
I
topic.
think no. It's first of all, those were great guests. I think what you do, because it sort of piqued my interest because it transcends like types of dealerships, right? I had one of the biggest issues I had scaling our used car operation across the nation, and we delivered cars in every single state practically. But it was, the operations, the processes was extremely difficult, right? Like most of us come up in the variable track, right? And maybe, we start in sales and stuff like that. Like I would say the majority of dealership GMs don't start in the back office. You just kind of learn it on the fly. So I remember bringing in people from like Drive Time and stuff like that. I brought one lady from Drive Time who was just phenomenal, Lauren. And suddenly I was exposed to this entire world. We're like, oh, wow. Like if I want to sell cars in every state online, there's a lot here to unpack. And the bigger question in my mind has always like, why is it so difficult? And I've tried to uncover this throughout my conversations. I had a Bernie Marino on the podcast, who's now a U.S. Senator elect. He was on the podcast as well, where we spoke about, he founded a company called Champ Titles. He's no longer involved with it or directly, but the point is, I've kind of tried to uncover like, why is our industry behind the scenes operating like from like a century ago? Why can't we bring things up to the modern tech and infrastructure and make things easier? So that's what I got you for. So that's my backstory on that. I think, David, if you could just get us started with a little bit of your story and, really the earlier days of Dealer DMV, the founding of this company.
Right. So company was founded in 2016. We came to market in 2017 as an e-titling company, really in Florida. That's where we cut our teeth. Florida was a market where really we started with 0 dealers and then grew it well into the thousands there of franchise dealers. In Florida, dealers have the ability to tie into the DMV system through what's called the EFS program. In that state, a dealer can actually have license plates in their office when at the point of sale, the customer comes in, they can issue those license plates and they'll use Dealer DMV to connect with the DMV to title and register the car. So we had a really quick ramp up in that state. Really the way, I guess I should back up, the way that happened, our 2 company founders assembled a team of people that had a lot of experience in the space. We had a lot of relationships and we went out to dealers that we knew. We listened to their needs. We were intimately aware of kind of the problems with the existing legacy programs, and we just delivered what they were asking for. So we had that really quick ramp up. And, then we continued that playbook in additional states with state-specific e-titling products.
So I want to ask, like, as in the dumbest way possible, right? Like, what is the issue with our industry? And obviously, when it comes to titling DMV, but what is the core issue? Why can't we solve this? Why is this so manual, so much paper involved? Like, can you start me off high level?
Yeah. So high level, I mean, really, the state DMV holds the keys to title and registration, right? I think on the legislative side, things don't always move as fast-paced as the business side. And so really, when you think in terms of title and registration, it's the DMV that's in control of the finality of it, actually issuing title and registration. There's really a misalignment of priorities. When you think the DMV, they're approaching everything from a regulatory compliance lens. They are scrutinizing applications and paperwork, looking for any kind of issues, looking for any potential for fraud. From the tax standpoint, they're looking to be penny perfect on the taxes that are remitted. But on the dealer side, as a for-profit business, they're trying to provide a really quick and efficient process for their customer. They want it to be hassle-free. They want it to not delay so that their customer can drive the car legally. They want to get their liens recorded quickly so they can appease the lender. They want things done quick and easy, and the DMV is not, that's just not their priority.
Now, take me back to how you guys came up. So if I'm not mistaken here, you're serving today over 3,000 dealerships across the country?
Yes, across 38 states today. That changes by the day, but yes, we have roughly 3,000 dealerships using at least one of our products.
Wow. What was the initial vision, right? Where did this spawn out of, and why try to kind of tackle this extremely challenging problem?
So the original vision of the company, really, you'd have to understand, many of us at Dealer DMV came from prior titling companies, and a couple people branched off from that, started their own company, and it was really, we thought we could do it better. We were aware of what issues dealers were constantly complaining about, and we thought there was a lot of opportunity there. So why not create something with a fresh approach?
Mm-hmm. And how did you start?
I mean, the software starts from a development standpoint. The two founders kind of got with developers, built the beginnings of the product, got that far enough along to actually put it in a dealer, all the while certifying with the state DMV in Florida and things like that.
Okay, so you have this grand vision, right? Like, what happens next? Like, it's a gargantuan challenge. So how do you even start that, right? Like, who's your first customer? Like, what do you even do?
So through previous relationships, you can identify a dealer that's willing to help you out, right? And it starts in one dealer. You bring the product, in its infancy to one dealer, you install it there, you get that feedback, you hear their suggestions, you deliver on those, and you get it to the point where the product's solid, the dealer's enjoying using it, and then you roll it out to the next dealer. And pretty soon you start to, you snowball it a little bit. Word of mouth starts to translate. Wait a minute, they're using that? Oh, I heard that's new. Oh, they're using it as well? So before you know it, 3 dealers turns into 10, 10 turns into 50, 50 turns into a couple hundred. You're getting endorsed by the state dealer associations, so on and so forth. And before you know it, a couple years later, you got 1,000 dealers using the product.
Have you seen your business sort of follow this ebb and flow with just a rise of digital retailing and obviously more people selling across state lines? I will say it was, that number was down during COVID because, you didn't have any cars on the lot. So why sell across state lines? But just give us a little sneak peek into the trends within your company. What have you seen with general out of state sales and in trends in dealerships?
Right. So overall volumes may have been down during COVID, but the impact on inventory that COVID played and the shortage, of inventory actually drove a lot of sales to be out-of-state sales. As a consumer, you didn't have access to, say, 3 red on-tan Tahoes right at your community Chevrolet dealer. Oftentimes, you may have to go find that car. So when COVID impacted those inventory levels, I think dealers were seeing more out-of-state deals.
All right, so let's move forward to out-of-state titles, something that we all just love to talk about. No, but in all reality, it's something that every dealership faces, and increasingly, right? Like I said, with digital retailing, it's something that every single dealership is dealing with. Can you just explain, what is right now the role that it's playing in a dealership, out-of-state titles? How has that just changed the dealership operations? Let's just start there.
Yeah, sure. So maybe a good place to start on that is, what is out-of-state titling? And you have to understand that where the vehicle is titled is driven by where the customer lives, right? Just because your dealership may be located in Florida doesn't mean that you're titling in Florida. And that's probably a very obvious concept for your audience that are dealers, but maybe not for everyone. So out-of-state deals, it's when the customer's coming from out of town, cross state lines to buy the car. And that really can be for a number of reasons, right? It could be the customer that's just on the other side of the state line that's looking for a really good deal, and they're traveling outside of their market to get that deal. They're willing to put in the miles to get it. Or what I think is a little more typical is it's a customer with a very particular car they're looking for, and the dealership has that unit. So the customer has parameters that they're searching, and when they narrow it down, you've got that car, so they're going to come out and get it. And that probably starts with, an inbound internet lead, and then obviously materializes into a deal.
Yeah. Now, what do you see as the biggest hurdles nowadays that dealers are facing when it comes to this? Because next I'm going to ask you, I'm curious what solution solutions, like how you're solving these problems. But let's just start there, right? Like, why is it so difficult? What are the biggest hurdles that you're seeing with dealers dealing with?
Right. So in terms of title and registration, I'm thinking of the car sale as kind of a two-part process. You've got everything leading up to and at the point of sale, and then everything after that. So, on that first part, you've got, in order to make this go right, you've got to calculate fees. You need to know what you need to charge the customer in order to set up the fees on the deal for title, registration, and sales tax. In almost every state, the sales tax is a prerequisite to titling the vehicle. And that's challenging for dealers for a number of reasons. One, the sales tax rates in other states are not the same as the state where that dealership is. Dealerships are generally an expert on titling in their state. They're very fluent in it. They get a lot of muscle memory. If you're selling 200 cars, you get 200 swings at calculating the sales tax each month. They know how to do that. It's all programmed in their DMS. When it comes to an out-of-state deal, it's a lot more difficult. It's different tax rates. It's a different taxable base. Sometimes extended service agreements are taxed at a different rate than, say, the vehicle. There's property taxes and ad valorem and all these weird things that don't even exist in some dealer states. So I think it's just a muscle memory issue, the limited experience. You're a dealer in, say, Georgia. How many Wyoming deals are you doing a year? How many opportunities have you had to figure that out, right? So there's that's kind of really the first big hurdle. And that can be a part of even the pre-sale, right? Just the sales manager kind of structuring a deal. We need to know what the tax tag and title fees are. From that, though, leading up to the sale, there's a whole myriad of forms, and they're all different in different states. Dealers don't always have access to those. Those forms have to not only be complete, but extremely accurate. So you have to capture all the signatures on those forms. So you've got fees, forms. You need to know what titling prerequisites are. In some states, you need insurance. As long as you've got insurance policy number and a company code, you're good. That's not the same everywhere. So I think a lot of dealers struggle because they try to use the processes they have in place for their in-state deals, and it may be wildly different than where their customers coming from, and they run into a lot of trouble.
This episode is brought to you by OpenLane, the leading online dealer marketplace for used cars. OpenLane brings more than 25 years of innovation to the wholesale automotive industry, solely focused on making wholesale easy so dealers can be more successful. Their marketplace offers a fast and transparent way to source used and fresh vehicle inventory. Looking to sell? On OpenLane, you can turn vehicles into more cash fast. With a nationwide network of buyers, vehicles listed on OpenLane sell in less than a day on average. OpenLane is the industry leader in innovation, rolling out new tools to make buying and selling easier. Visual Boost AI leverages the power of AI to help buyers review vehicles quickly and bid with confidence. New to OpenLane? Sign up now and new sellers receive a $2,500 sale fee credit. Learn more at openlane.com or click the link in the show notes below. Explain to us, what's your vision, right? If you could wave a magic wand, because you're obviously building tools to solve these problems for dealers and digitize them. But if you could wave a magic wand, right? What does the car sale look like? In other words, if we have this conversation in 3 to 5 years, right? What have you accomplished and how much easier is it to sell a car?
Right. So really, our vision, we start by focusing on the role at finance at point of sale, right? We need it to be as quick as possible. We want, through DMS integration, we want a finance manager to enter in as little data as possible, ingest all of that data from their DMS as quickly as possible, fill out everything so that the finance manager has to do very little to calculate fees, generate all these necessary forms, and quickly present the customer with the documents today that they have to sign. I think the future, we'd love to see a more national adoption of e-signatures. We have our own proprietary e-signing tool for dealers, but at this stage, e-signing isn't acceptable in all 50 states. I think we'd love to see the states buy in and work closer together to provide a more uniform experience, right? I mean, Dealer DMV, we have a government affairs person on the team. We have a whole team of people. We have lobbyists in the company. We're always advocating, if it can make a dealer's life easier, we want to be a part of that.
Are you advocating for something right now that you think is close to something that's close to getting past that will make dealers' lives easier? Like, in other words, is there light at the end of the tunnel? Are we kind of seeing something here close on the horizon?
It's tough. There are some cool things happening. I wish I could tell you that, we're 18 months away from the whole game changing. It really doesn't look like that. The states don't always work together in that way. Titling and registering the car and all the fees associated with that are a huge revenue base for them, and it takes time because there's that legislative element. So it's tough.
Are there any quick wins here, right? Like, I want to understand all the solutions you offer, but if I was today starting a dealership, or you were today starting a dealership, you left Dealer DMV and said, I'm launching my own dealership, right? Is there at least one thing that you're like, wow, this could make my life so much better overnight? What is that tool or solution?
Absolutely. Like, if you're selling cars out of state, you need Dealer 50, our out of state titling tool. I really don't think that you can sell cars at scale out of state without a tool like this.
Mm-hmm. So take us like on a broad spectrum. Dealer 50 is your out of state tool. What other problems is Dealer DMV as a company trying to tackle in this industry? I mean, there's no shortage of them. So other than out of state, like, can you give us an overview?
Yeah, absolutely. And anywhere where we can streamline, of course, we live exclusively in the title and registration space. It's an area, whether you're selling cars in state or out of state, that consumes a lot of time, particularly at the point of sale in the finance office traditionally. Anywhere where we can streamline that, we want to. So obviously we focus with a lot of the e-titling options for dealers that allow them to tap right into the DMV and generate registrations on demand. We also have inquiry tools that allow them to validate a VIN that's coming into their dealership, determine if there's liens on it, if there's any title brands with it. We have some really cool things on that front. One of the things I love with a product that we have is Dealer Sign. It's the first e-sign tool specifically for dealers, and it gives dealers the ability to get documents signed, whether they're relating to titling and registering or not. Even things like recontracting or extended service agreements, you can run through our Dealer Sign portal, and you can do it for remote signing, which allows you just send documents to someone on their phone. They can buy a car, sign with their finger, and move forward. An awesome story with the Dealer Sign tool. Very early on, I was in a dealership. We were actually showing them the Dealer Sign tool, trying to get them to see the value in it. They were kind of interested in it, and one of the salespeople approached them, and they had an issue where they needed a document signed, but the co-buyer wasn't present at the dealership. It was the wife. The husband was actually deployed in Afghanistan. And we were able to very quickly get them set up with Dealer Sign, send off this power of attorney, get it signed, and within minutes across the world, we're getting that document back uploaded right on screen. We're looking at a signature. 100% acceptable by the DMV. And the dealer was blown away.
Yeah, I think that's what the industry wants, right? If we can scale that, well, if you can scale that, I think that saves everyone time and just makes the buying process so much better.
We're in a period where there's a lot of interest in that, obviously from the dealer side for obviously reasons, but also on the DMV side, we're just a little bit legislatively behind. And right now it's a little fragmented where, you have some DMVs that will say, we'll accept these 9 documents electronically signed, and that's good, but this 10th document, maybe it's an odometer disclosure or particular power of attorney, that can't be e-signed. So you have to wet sign that. So now this dealer is in a predicament where they're kind of splitting things up. We're going to wet sign this, we're going to e-sign that. It's really messy. And that's, I think, what we'd love to see some movement on, and just a total acceptance of e-signatures across the board.
Yeah, I'm curious if EVs are impacting this in any way, from whether it be cost to process. I mean, is there anything different that you're seeing on the EV front? Because again, I just put out a newsletter the other day about the rise of used EVs, because we've obviously sold many new EVs over the past couple of years, and now we're getting them as used. And so we're just going to see them continue cycling through the market. Curious to know how EVs are impacting all this, the out-of-state titling fees and just the overall transaction.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like we're so in tune with, sales tax rates and particular title and registration fees. One thing that I'm noticing more and more is that a lot of states are abandoning the tax credits that they were giving on the sale of EVs. I think, they started out trying to increase adoption of electric vehicles for various reasons. And in many states, they just said there's no sales tax on EVs, or there's a reduced registration fee. But as time goes on, I think the states then started to realize they're losing a larger and larger share of the tax revenue from that. So, you're starting to see some states dial back on that. Most recently, I saw New Jersey, I think in October, October, the tax rate changed. It went from 0 to 3+%, and then it's stair-stepping in 2025 to another 3% to match the sales tax rate of a standard ICE vehicle. But they're even doing some things where they're requiring the consumer to pay like their $250 EV annual fee 4 years in advance up front. So it's strange. I think a lot of the consumers out there are almost seeing these changes like as an attack on EVs. It's probably not. It's more of just they're recognizing that tax loss and trying to catch up. But it is interesting to watch, and we're so in tune with that because we're watching on a daily basis for sales tax rates to change and things like that.
Speaking of tax loss, I have you captive, so I got to ask you about the whole Montana vehicle registration loophole. Can you tell us a little bit about this, right? How is this apparently still legal, right? What does this mean for dealers? Are you seeing many dealers take advantage of this? Give us like the full breakdown.
Right. Yeah. I think it's ultimately driven by the consumer, right? What it is in pretty much every state, maybe one or two, there's an exception. Like we talked about earlier, it's where the customer resides that drives where they have to title the vehicle. But that's kind of not true totally in Montana when it comes to LLCs. So Montana has taken a position that says we're going to be very tax friendly. There's no sales tax on cars when you're titling in Montana. And you can form an LLC here for a small fee through a registered agent in the state, whether you have residence or not in the state. So people, this has been going on for a while. If you're buying an extremely expensive car, an exotic, a Ferrari, Lamborghini, something that's several $100,000, and you can title it in the LLC's name, you now have the opportunity to save $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, depending on the price of that vehicle in sales tax. They'll ship you Montana plates, and it might be why you see the Montana license plates on exotics more often than any other state. It's interesting, and it's legal, so I get it, but it is kind of considered a loophole.
Oh, wow. So there's no strings attached, right? You're saying if someone is buying that car, it's a supercar, exotic car, right? If they do register through Montana, through one of these, agents that are all over the internet, you're saying that is actually fully legal.
As far as I know, it is legal. Consult your attorney. But yeah, and there are minor fees. I believe there's like a luxury vehicle tax, $800 some odd if the car's over $150,000. But those fees are just so minute. I think the average sales tax rate across the country is something right around 7%. If you're buying a $400,000 car plus tag and title fees, you're talking about $30,000 in taxes, right?
Yeah.
So someone may put a little bit of legwork into finding a way to reduce that burden.
Interesting. I'm curious, have you quantified just how much time and money you're able to save dealers using, your platform? And also add, I wouldn't say just save, I would say also increase revenues by being able to do more deals. But have you quantified that?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions with dealers. Being in 2,000 dealers now, you meet a lot of dealers. They all have different stories. It's the degree to which out-of-state titling is costing them money varies. But I have an interesting anecdote. Early on, when we were rolling out the Dealer 50 product in the Georgia market, we started with a store in Atlanta. This is a store, I won't name the store, but part of a large publicly traded group. And in a conversation with the controller there, we learned that they were writing off, upwards of $6,000 a month in lost fees. So I guess, first of all, how does this happen? When the dealership sells a car to a customer out of state and they structure the deal with a tax, tag, and title fees, when it comes time to formally apply for title and pay those fees, if it turns out that they miscalculated and they actually owe more than they collected at the point of sale, more often than not, they're going to write that off before they approach the customer. If it's a sum of money, $200, $300, $400 to the average dealer, it's not worth trying to chase the customer down because we all know that's just going to result in miserable CSI, right? I think the consumer already has in some cases a distrust for the dealer, and if you finish a sale, send a customer on their way, and call them back in 8 days saying, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we actually need you to send us another $413 for your tag and title fee, they're gonna side eye you at the very least, right? It's probably gonna result in a bad survey. It's not gonna be a good look. So with our solution and the ability for finance or sales managers to quickly calculate, you can calculate title and registration fees in any state, any jurisdiction in a matter of seconds. We're DMS integrated, very little data entry. We can calculate the fees, and the fees are guaranteed, right? So you have that assurance that at the point of sale, you're collecting the right amount of money. And that's one way that they're gonna be able to save a bunch of money.
This episode is brought to you by Effective. Hey, you know Comcast, right? Well, what if there's a way to use Comcast's first-party data insights to directly advertise your dealership to in-market audiences? And what if you could target those audiences based on their interest, income, even what kind of car they're looking for? With Effective, you can do exactly that. As part of Comcast, Effective uses their first-party data insights to reach in-market buyers across traditional TV and streaming. Get started today at EFFECTV.com/auto. Again, that's EFFECTV.com/auto, or click the link in the show notes below. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this because, you know, this in the age of AI, we talk a lot about enhancing versus replacing employees' talent. And I'm curious to know, like, what is your path here, right? Are you strictly enhancing? Are you replacing, doing both? Like, how does this kind of integrate with the dealership?
Absolutely. So right now, we're not in the business of replacing any position. I would equate Dealer50 to an amazing tool that you're giving someone, right? You still need qualified finance managers delivering cars. They're going to be using our product. You still need a title clerk that's got great attention to detail, organized people to complete the deal, but you want to arm them with the best product available, right? That's going to translate into savings for the dealership. It's going to translate into a quicker overall turnaround of the plate and the title for the customer, and it's going to keep you in compliance with your lender and that agreement there, your obligation to record the lien, as well as the DMV, of course. So we're really trying to bridge the gap between the priorities of the DMV, which are all focused on, regulation, compliance, law, through the lens of let's prevent fraud, with the priorities of the dealer, which are let's get this done as quickly as possible so that we can provide the best experience for the customer.
So David, before we wrap up, I have to imagine that the banks love you, the lenders, because you're speeding up funding and you're dotting your I's, crossing your T's. But just talk to me a little bit about how you work with the lenders and how you sort of support the entire ecosystem.
Right. So really, it's the banks that have maybe the biggest influence on the titling process in the first place. And because it's all about getting their lien recorded. The dealer is more or less in control of that when they sell the car and collect all the information from the customer. It's their obligation through the agreement with the lender that they have to record the lien. That happens at the time the vehicle's titled in most states. So from a bank standpoint, until their lien is recorded on the title, that vehicle's a huge liability to them. If the car were to be in an accident, some kind of total loss situation, it becomes very difficult for the bank to get their money if they're not the lien holder on the deal. If they have to repossess the vehicle and the lien's not recorded, it's extremely difficult. A whole different scenario for them. But really at the end of the day, if they don't have the lien recorded, they've extended credit as if it were a credit card, right? It's totally unsecured. And I mean, these are $70,000, $80,000, $100,000, assets. So they really can't have that happen. So the banks are putting an enormous amount of pressure on the dealers to not only get it titled, but to do it quickly, because the longer it goes untitled without that lien recorded, the riskier it is. So, there's a huge incentive there to get it done quickly. And that's really the magic behind Dealer50. What we've done is we've created this curated network of expediting agencies that our tech, our software, gives dealers access to. We've created this portal and joined those two parties so that they have an avenue to get the vehicles titled very quickly after the point of sale.
So basically, if you're playing ball with the banks and it just makes everyone's experience a lot better, the dealer experience, the customer experience, everybody wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, banks are scrutinizing the turnaround time when a vehicle is titled. Really, if a vehicle goes untitled after the point of sale, 60 days, that's where things start to get really dicey. Dealers know this. They're going to start getting letters. At closer to 90 days, 120 days, they're getting demand letters, which are really the bank telling the dealer, hey, if this vehicle isn't titled by this day, you're sending us a check. You're buying back the loan, right? So most dealers that we work with have been in this situation at some time in the past. It's a really, really sticky situation that they're trying to avoid.
Well said. David Donaldson, any closing thoughts?
No, I just appreciate you taking interest in this topic, right? It's something that, as we said, affects so many dealers. And, if a dealer wants to find out more about our service, I just tell them to visit our website, the URL DLR50.com.
Great. And we'll link we'll put in the show notes below as well. David,
Awesome.
Appreciate you for coming on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yossi.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.